Okay, it is 5:30. I will call the meeting or the Chubbuck Development Authority to order. Want to excuse Derek Toon and Crystal Denny. They are not here. On Zoom, attending via Zoom is Rick Keller and Amanda James. And Ashley Squires will not be here. She just called me about 10 minutes ago. She's having health issues and is headed to the ER. Anyway, so we will try and muddle through. I'll try and muddle through on where we are in here. Anyway, before we start, are there any conflicts of interest for anything on the agenda that anybody may have? Okay, hearing none, we will move on. I assume you have the minutes for the July 21st meeting. I would entertain a motion to approve those if you've read those and would feel so inclined.
Mr. Chairman, this is Rick Keller.
Yes.
I've read the minutes and I move that they be adopted as printed.
Okay, we have a motion by Keller. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, this is Amanda James. I'll second.
Okay. We already had one by Brandon Desfosses. He beat you to it. So.
Second.
Vote, please.
Yep, second.
Keller,
Yes.
Heiner,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
DeFossis,
Yes.
Huff.
Yes. Okay. Next item is financial report. You have that before you, and I haven't reviewed that. I don't have a whole lot here. Trying to think what I have here before me. Some of this I printed out, some of it I didn't. I wasn't expecting to have to review this. Hang on just a second here. Fingers aren't working. Okay. Okay, basically we have bills for August 11th of $4,230 to AF Public Solutions. That's for Ashley's company. We have Clifton Allen, $1,298.28 for accounting. Idaho State Journal for posting public notices and things that we needed to do. Actually, this is for our budget, $192.20. And then Racine Olson, $2,000, which is the monthly for our attorneys. So that's what we have for that. And these basically are approved already. So this is just kind of for notation.
Need a motion on that, Mr. Chair?
We don't necessarily need a motion because we covered that already. That's already approved and
Okay.
so that's what we have. Don't have anything for approval on that. Okay, action item, which is item number 2. That's the approval of claims. That is actually what we do. Excuse me. So I do need a motion on that one.
Okay, I would move to approve the claims as presented.
Okay, we have a motion by Huff. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second by Desfosses. Please take roll.
Keller,
Yes.
Huff,
Yes.
Heiner,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
DeFossis.
Yes.
Okay. Item number 3, purchase and sale agreement for the 333 Chubbuck Road. TJ, you have your name on that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Commissioner and members of the board. As you're aware, the the property at 339 East Chubbuck, that's the parish warehouse property. We put out an RFP for that. We only had one response from Seasons West, and at our last CDA meeting, we approved the proposal that Seasons West made. So usually what happens in response to an RFP, if there's multiple people that submit proposals, we typically go through an agreement to negotiate exclusively where the proposal we preliminarily accept, we work with that developer to put together a final purchase agreement, which we call development and disposition agreement. But in this case, since we only had one proposal, we're skipping the agreement to negotiate exclusively, jumping right into the development and disposition agreement. And what this agreement does is it's an agreement between the CDA and the developer where the CDA says, we will sell you this property for this price as long as you agree to make these improvements to redevelop the property on these terms. And once that's signed, then we deed the property over. The developer has to comply with the terms and redevelop the property, and then we move on. So because the development is really quite limited for the parish warehouse property, I was able to take out some sections of the DDA. We often have provisions that require like proof of financing and things like that, but we're not requiring that here. Seasons West has its own equipment. They'll do the demolition themselves. The cost is pretty low. So this is a little bit more streamlined agreement, and essentially it defines the work that Seasons West is required to do once we deed the property to them. And if you scroll down to PDF page 44, Alexis, I'll just point out that under this DDA, the scope of development mirrors the proposal that was made by Seasons West. So their agreement is to demolish and remove the parish warehouse, what's left of it, and the concrete foundation and the remnants. They're going to backfill and compact it so that property can be used productively. And then attachment 3 defines the schedule of performance, and often these can be more detailed, but in this case, Seasons West is agreeing to perform that work within 2 months of closing. So if the CDA approves signing of this agreement today, then Dan will go ahead and sign it. We'll have Seasons West sign it. I'll then take care of the closing, so we'll convey the property to Seasons West, and then they'll have 2 months to clean it up, and then they'll have performed their responsibilities under the DDA. I will note that Joey brought to my attention today that I had for the signature Annette Baumeister. I don't know if you saw
Oh.
that, Dan. That was just an oversight.
Yeah.
So I will correct that on the version that gets signed. So it's signed by Dan and not our past chair, Annette. But with that, I'll stand for any questions the board may have. If there are no questions, then be appropriate to have this approved by motion and authorize Dan to sign it.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair, I
Yes.
don't remember our discussion, but did we have any discussion on weed abatement and fence extension or anything like that?
That was not part of the proposal.
No.
And when Seasons West came forward, we considered that proposal. That was not added or brought up as an additional condition. So the CDA accepted what Seasons West proposed, which was just demolition, remove all the foundation, and enable the property to be productively used.
Okay, all right. I couldn't remember. I didn't think we did, but
The first time around, there was discussion of that. I don't remember what made it in, but there was discussion about
Okay.
landscaping and fencing and things like that. But this time around, that was not part of the proposal.
okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I would move to approve the, it's not the purchase and sale, what'd you call it? The disposition and development agreement as presented in the packet.
Okay, there's a motion by Huff. Any second?
Yeah, I second.
Second by
Motion.
DeFossis.
Keller,
Yes.
Huff,
Yes.
Heiner,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
DeFossis.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right, item number 4, 152 Evans Lane. TJ, you want to talk about that a little bit?
You bet. At the last CDA meeting, we mentioned that the DDA for 152 Evans Lane, that's the property being developed by Josh Ellis, that the deadlines for completing phase 1 and phase 2 would need to be extended. I think everybody's familiar with the progress they've made with the pickleball court. It looks great and looks like they're getting close to being done. The latest progress report is in the materials. We did receive from the developer a proposed third addendum to amend certain provisions of the DDA. That was precipitated by the need to extend the deadlines for development of the phases. But there's a few other changes that are proposed as well. And the developer provided both the third addendum, but they also provided a nice table that compares the current DDA with their proposed amendments, which makes it really easy to follow what they proposed. And Alexis, if you can go to PDF page 51 in the packet, we'll just walk through the changes that they proposed. The first change is to section 2.3. This is a section of the DDA that just defines the project, defines what work the developer is going to do to rehabilitate the site. And the left column that shows original, it shows what is in the current DDA. So if you read that, it says the project consists of mixed-use buildings, apartments over ground floor retail, and possible commercial event space, rooftop restaurant, indoor recreation, pickleball courts, go-kart racing, and exercise fitness club space. So when the property was conveyed to the developer, that was the concept that was contemplated at that time. If you look in the middle column that's titled Red Line Changes in the third addendum, these are the changes that are proposed to be made to the description of the project. And this provides more flexibility for the developer to do other types of development. And you can see with the blue text, it says that the buildings will meet the intent of the agency's mission to create a viable downtown while also being economically feasible to complete the development. Developers shall submit proposals for each building to agency for approval, and said approval shall be granted liberally to effectuate the purpose and intent of the project. We will give the developer a chance to speak to this, but it's clear that they're proposing to provide a fair amount of flexibility in how they develop the property going forward, and their proposal is to enable them to come back on a kind of building by building or phase by phase basis and show the CDA what they would like to do for that phase and request approval at that time. Let's scroll down to the next page, Alexis. Section 2.4 of the development agreement provides the timeline for completing the phases. The first phase of development initially had a completion deadline of April 2025. The CDA later extended that to December of 2025. And we had discussions about extending phase 1 further, just knowing that it was going to take longer to complete, but we've not formally extended phase 1. So phase 1 is the pickleball facility that's under construction and nearing completion. That obviously needs to have an extension, and the developer is proposing to extend the completion deadline for phase 1 to November 31st. Phase 2, which is infrastructure along Linden Avenue. So it's the improvements on the south side of the property that are just opposite Idaho Central Credit Union. Those initially had a completion deadline of December 31st of last year. The developer is proposing to extend that to December 31st of 2030. And then for phases 3, 4, and 5, the current DDA has a deadline for phase 3 that's at the end of this year, December 31st of 26. And then phase 4, which is going to be a 4 to 5 story mixed use building, that had a deadline of 2027. And then phase 5, which was a second 4 to 5 story mixed use building, had a deadline of May of 2030. What the developer is proposing to do is to essentially lump those together and extend the deadline to June of 2034. So those future buildings that would be built on the interior of the property would have until 2034 to be completed, and the developer would would come along as he's ready to move forward with those projects and seek approval each time. So that's the timeline. I would also note that at the bottom of that, section 2.4, the proposal is in that second to last sentence says developer shall have the flexibility to request additional extensions of time for all phases upon request and approval of the agency, and that approval shall be liberally granted to effectuate the purpose and intent of the project. Okay, Alexis, next page. We're gonna look at section 4.1. When a project is awarded by the CDA for redevelopment property that the CDA has purchased, we define the project, we establish a time frame for completing the project, and then the developer is required to provide evidence of financing to give the CDA assurance that they can complete the project within the time frame. And section 4.1 is in some ways kind of a cleanup of the agreement to reflect the fact that it's a phase-by-phase project. And what these changes would do would require the developer to provide financing in connection with each phase. So the way it was written originally was not totally clear on whether the developer had to provide proof of financing up front for everything or phase by phase. The CDA did go through a process where the developer provided proof of financing for phase 1. And this revision in section 4.1 clarifies that with future phases, the developer would have to do the same thing, would have to provide proof of financing before commencing those future phases. And then the last proposal on section 4.5 refers to encumbrances. And I'll let the developer speak more to this, but this relates to a lien that a lender will put on the property to secure the loan for construction of phases. And the developer's clarifying that liens can be put on the property on a phase-by-phase basis. And then, oh, we got one more, two more maybe. Alexis, go to PDF page 55. We're looking at section 5.1. The next proposed amendment is that the CDA be able to give extensions of up to 18 months at a time. The way the DDA reads now, the CDA can only give extensions cumulatively totaling 90 days. And we've obviously, exceeded that with phase 1. And so the developer's proposal is to allow the CDA to give multiple extensions up to 18 months at a time, not have like a cap on how much of an extension can be granted. And then if we scroll down to the next page, we're looking at section 12.6. This is a minor change that relates to extensions resulting from circumstances beyond the developer's control. That word forced delay are usually like when there's things we think of like acts of God, like, floods and fires and things like that. It's pretty common in contracts to allow time extensions if those things happen. The current DDA provides for an extension of 30 days. Let's remember this. I think the notice has changed from 30 days to 90 days. I'll let the developer speak more to that, but that's kind of a minor change. So that's a summary of the changes that are being proposed by the developer. I thought in connection with this, I would use this as an opportunity to educate some of our newer CDA members just about what the obligations of the CDA are when it comes to selling property and what sideboards we have to operate within. And so, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to hand out a section of Idaho code that I'll walk through with the members of the CDA if you're okay with that.
Yes, please.
Alexis already has it on the screen. So we're looking at Idaho Code Section 50-2011. This is a section of the state code that governs urban renewal agencies. And this section specifically deals with disposal of property in an urban renewal area. As everyone knows, urban renewal agencies have authority to purchase underdeveloped or blighted property and redevelop it themselves or sell it to others for redevelopment purposes. And this code section specifies how that's to be done. I've highlighted the sections that I think are worth reading just for educational purposes in connection with what we're discussing today. And I'm going to read just what's highlighted and maybe make a few comments. Beginning in subpart A, an urban renewal agency may sell, lease, or otherwise transfer real property or any interest therein acquired by it for an urban renewal project, or may retain such property or interest for public use in accordance with the urban renewal plan, as it may deem necessary or desirable to assist in preventing the development or spread of future slums or blighted areas, or to otherwise carry out the purposes of this act. So I'll just stop there. This just empowers the CDA to acquire property and redevelop it, or lease it, or sell it for redevelopment. Moving on to the next highlighted section, the purchasers or lessees and their successors and assigns shall be obligated to devote such real property only to the uses specified in the urban renewal plan, and may be obligated to comply with such other requirements as the urban renewal agency may determine to be in the public interest, including the obligation to begin within a reasonable time any improvements on such real property required by the urban renewal plan. This is why we have disposition and development agreements to specify how the property is going to be redeveloped in the time frame and all of that. Moving on to subpart B, it says an urban renewal agency may dispose of real property in an urban renewal area to private persons only under such reasonable competitive bidding procedures as it shall prescribe or as hereinafter provided in this subsection. For those of you who weren't here, we went through the RFP process with the property at 152 Evans. There were multiple bids that were submitted, or multiple proposals, I should say. And the CDA went through a scoring process and a vetting process and ultimately elected to award the project to the current developer. At the bottom of that first page, it reads, the urban renewal agency shall consider all such redevelopment or rehabilitation proposals and the financial and legal ability of the persons making such proposals to carry them out. And then on the next page, it says the urban renewal agency may accept such proposals as it deems to be in the public interest and in furtherance of the purposes of this act. I've also got attached there just a table that compares the current deadlines under the DDA. One of those deadlines was extended previously, as I mentioned, and then the proposed deadlines by the third addendum, so you can see all of that side by side. Okay, with that background, I'm providing all of this information because I think it bears on the CDA's analysis and decision with the third addendum. The CDA does have authority to enter into a development agreement and to later amend it. So it's not unusual for construction projects to incur delays. It could be supplies, it could be subcontractors, it could be any number of things. And the CDA has authority to extend deadlines, to modify the scope of the project, and help the project achieve its potential. And we've done that with some addendums already, and the third addendum proposes to do that as well. The question for the CDA board is whether the board is comfortable that the proposed amendment fits within the scope of the RFP and the scope of the DDA to a reasonable degree. And I'll explain it this way. When we sent out the RFP, we described what the CDA wanted to see in redevelopment. And when the two competing proposals were made, they were competing with each other to meet those objectives. And the CDA awarded the project to Mr. Ellis because it deemed that project to most effectively meet the objectives of the RFP. If once a project's awarded, if the developer is not able to complete it under the conditions and milestones that are prescribed, then the undeveloped property comes back to the CDA, and the CDA issues a new RFP and goes through that process again. We don't really want to do that because it's difficult and time consuming and, administratively disruptive and all of those things. However, there are limits on the discretion of the CDA to change from the project that was initially approved. Under the DDA, there is a prohibition against speculation. So we can't sell property to anybody for redevelopment without a prescribed project that they're going to actually build and implement within a reasonable time, which the code requires. And so one of the concerns that I know is, exists on this board based on prior discussions is, does leaving the DDA open-ended or having deadlines too far out put the CDA at risk of somebody challenging it or accusing the CDA of allowing a, material change in the scope and timing of the project? And you potentially could have other potential developers challenge the CDA if we got too far afield from what was initially included in the RFP and initially allowed under the DDA. And the third addendum, it's pushing that envelope from my perspective in terms of providing really, deadlines that are much further out than initially were required, and kind of open-ended development scheme. And so I'm concerned as legal counsel for the CDA that potentially, could be challenged by not maintaining fidelity to the original plan. So there's some gray area there in terms of, accommodating the developer and maintaining the original project and allowing it to go forward versus allowing a significant pivot in the project in terms of what it contemplates and timelines and things like that. So this creates a little bit of a challenging decision for the CDA, and I thought I owed it to the client to explain some of those parameters so you can wrestle with them and make the decision you think is best.
Thank you. Josh, you or your representative want to?
Just a point of clarification, Eric Olson, counsel for the developer. I know that at least on your agenda, you showed a project update with Josh.
Yes.
Hopefully, maybe he could give that first, and then we can address the issues that Mr. Budge has brought up, and then I can address that. And then I think Josh will then address some of those things related to the DDA and our request for the third addendum, if that would be appropriate.
That would be fine.
Thank you.
You or Josh or whoever has the floor.
Mr. Chairman and Josh, I apologize for jumping the gun. Go ahead, Josh. I apologize. I jumped to agenda item. Yeah, before we had the project update. So thank you, Eric, and I apologize, Josh, for skipping you there.
You're good. We're trying to catch up and get ahead of schedule, so we like it. Josh Ellis, 12883 Level Lane, representing Chubbuck Village Developers. Right now, we've got about 3 different trades working in the buildings. Goal is to be open last week in October, first week in November. We're working with the people that are working on the giving machines, hoping to do our first tournament in conjunction with the giving machines, and all the proceeds will then go towards the giving machines, their entry fees into the building. Right now, there's spray foam insulation going in. The electricians are in there. Plumbers start this week running the plumbing. All of the rock work has been done and completed. The courts are completely finished. I do have a little bit of a hiccup with my rooftop units and the HVAC. It's not really the HVAC guy's problem. It's the steel erector's problem. We're trying to see if we can make those rooftop units go down on the sides, or if we'll have to make some modifications to keep them rooftop. A lot of buzz about the facility and the project. We've had our first couple of corporate sponsors that are ready to be corporate sponsors. We have people that are starting to book events and want to book events. So the biggest thing, well, probably the next biggest thing is we had a semi-professional pickleball player from Utah up here. And he said this rivals or is better than anything that he's played at in Utah or in Boise. We are confident that as we finish this project and as we get the public into this, this is what this area needs for people to have entertainment, to choose to stay here, to bring their businesses here. We didn't take a business model and put it into a 50-year-old building. We built something that will last for the next 20 to 30 years. In my exuberance, yes, believe me, I wish this was already done. The amount of interest that we've paid on this building, yeah. But we are building this building right. We will have entertainment and event spaces for people to rent and to use. We will have exercise equipment in this building. We actually have current businesses that are asking to put additional satellite stations in our facility to serve the public. So we are excited for what this is going to be able to bring, for the youth program that we are going to be able to bring. We've been in contact with the schools up in Idaho Falls. The youth, it's called AYP. We will be looking to get pickleball as a sanctioned sport in the high school venue. This facility will allow you to have state tournaments here. Right now, most of our kids, when they travel to state, everything goes to Boise. Tennis, track, most all of them, you end up traveling. We will be able to compete and bring people here from the state because of this facility. We will also be able to work with Idaho State University to create a club team at the college level. This facility is built to the standards that we will be able to have ISU have a club team. They will be able to compete with. So the good news is with these club sports is you don't have to be in the Pac-12 or the Big Ten or any of those other things. You can travel and do that. We believe that as you drive by this facility, as you get online, as you look at the stuff that we've created, we're excited for this facility. It's gonna be great. And as we complete this facility, we are confident that we will be able to get larger tenants in there. One of the challenges that we had, and I'll let Eric talk about the reason we're doing what we're doing. We want to pivot to entertainment and hospitality. That was one of the big things we were trying to do here, was bring entertainment here. One of the businesses needed to move on quicker, and we hope Extreme Rush the best of luck with where they're at. We hope it works great. We had another entertainment business here that we could not overcome the challenges with their parking concerns. Even with the ability of looking at potentially putting in underground parking, they were unwilling to make a change, to move at this point in time, and they're expanding where they currently are. So there are a few challenges with this specific property, but nothing that I don't think that we're not going to be able to create and make an incredible product. And with that, do you have any questions about the updates on the progress?
No, not on this facility right now.
Okay. I'll turn the time over to Eric.
Thank you, Chair Heiner. So the opportunity that we have here is certainly the project in phase one has moved forward. Josh mentioned a little bit of the issues we've had with the scope of what was envisioned initially, in the phase 2 and 3 on that part, where that hasn't come to fruition as we had anticipated. And, hindsight's always 20/20. If you knew where you'd go, you could always make a perfect plan and not have to deviate from it. But, we live in the real world, and we have to deal with changes in market conditions, circumstances, et cetera. And so what we're trying to do is certainly not hold the property for speculation. And that's really, I see that as a timing piece. And that's kind of an imprecise, I would say, measure or yardstick in this circumstance, okay? And what we were trying to do, policy-wise here with respect to the amendment is stay true to the specific purpose of the DDA to begin with, is to redevelop the property. That's take something that was old, turn it into something new. And that's the overall purpose. I see that as a very broad scope. The measure and specifically that redevelopment, or the piece that talks about holding for speculation was in that specific 5.4 there, and that hasn't changed. We're not taking that out. If you look at, or sorry, 5.1, and you look at the very last paragraph in the middle there, it specifically, keeps that in there. We're not trying to change any type of timing or, measure that's here, but we're just dealing with the practicalities of the situation at this point in time. I'd like Josh to talk a little bit more about, the pivot he talks about. I don't see this as a wholesale shucking of the program. We're looking at realistically to see the synergies that we have here with the pickleball court and what I think a hospitality and entertainment would do here for the city of Chubbuck. And he can talk to you about how they're looking at. And so what we're trying to do is to put some reasonable flexibility in the DDA under the circumstances to bring in the right project and to carry out the redevelopment, to put up that new structure that will help redevelop the downtown corridor here. You have a great new city hall, got new property, the development of the pickleball next door, and I hope that continues on. And so that's really the piece and purpose. I wouldn't see it as a wholesale changing. Now, the specific projects have, and we can talk a little bit further and maybe drill down, about timelines. But I think that the CDA clearly still has the ability to make sure that the property is developed in a timely manner. We put some language in there just to put some more contours and sideboards, during that period of time. And I believe that, those requests are reasonable. Certainly, we want to hear your concerns and see how we could bridge that gap, to find something that you would feel appropriate. And so with that, I would just stand for questions.
Anybody have any questions? Ready?
Okay.
Okay, I don't have anything right now.
Anything? I'm happy to get back up or whatnot, but, and so I think that still meets the purpose and intent. The general thing is to redevelop the property. The infrastructure is there, and it's ready to continue on with the synergies with the pickleball court. And I'd like to have Josh just address how we see this project moving forward and what would be there. And I don't think the timeline is different than what you've seen potentially other developments be flushed out with. I know Patriot Square over there, it's taken a significant period of time for tenants to come in and property be sold and to have that developed. So I don't think it's unreasonable given what other developments here in Chubbuck have experienced or here in the area. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
One of the things that we noticed as we were negotiating with one of the businesses is, as far as entertainment to move them, was the parking. We're currently meeting with two different entities. One is a non-chain, and the other one is a chained restaurant, not a chained restaurant, a chained hotel. One that has water slides, one that could have a wave pool, one that could have, I'm going to call it the Wave Rider, one of those surfing. I tried it on a birthday. I really shouldn't. I'm old, but hey, I figured I was falling on a pad, it would be good. We're looking at a hotel with entertainment so that as people come into the city of Chubbuck for baseball tournaments, volleyball tournaments, softball tournaments, we would have a hotel in Chubbuck. This hotel would have, if we're able to land this, would have the ability to have entertainment associated with it, which we believe directly goes to what the urban renewal for this specific district wanted near City Hall. Is something that brings you here all day, every day, summer, winter, fall. We've heard that some people want shops and they want shopping. As we've talked to different tenants, I don't know that the shopping, I don't know that the boutique shopping is going to be what you're going to put here initially. Now that may come, but we don't know that that's going to be your initial focal point to get people here. So what we are going after is a larger, bigger piece. And that's why you're seeing the timeline be somewhat extended. Yes, we could look at trying to build 15 condos right now. Since we started this progress or this process, there's at least 400, if not 600 condos that have been slated to be built within the Pocatello and the Chubbuck area. We think we're approaching a saturation point unless we start to see more job announcements. So our real goal here is to go after the next big major tenant. And then with that, it will create synergies that hopefully you will also see the other people around this area start to look at what they can do with their properties. And it is a real challenge to get people to see what's been there and then what you can build and create. And so what we're asking for is, yes, we're at about 3 years with this process, but by the time we have the CO and open the building, we will have only been building a 40,000 square foot building for about 14 months. We don't feel that that shows that we're sitting back, that we're not doing anything and that we're not trying to develop this. Our goal is to develop this out and to do it quickly. We have 2 different groups that are actually working on different funding. We actually have a tentative commitment for some private financing. I don't know if that's going to happen because of the way the market has been changing right now. I received that call this last week that they're kind of going a different direction. So I'm not trying to fill you with grandiose promises. I'm trying to fill you with the actual nuts and bolts of how you build a city and how you create and take an area that has been dilapidated and old houses, and you start to see a city hall, a pickleball building, ICCU credit union with their corporate campus right there. We believe we're building something that's going to make this area great. And as we do that, we think we'll be able to speed time up. It's not our intention to hold this. So that's what we have.
Let's talk about the parking issue. Because even the parking that's required for the pickleball court is, I don't think it's sufficient.
We have some concerns, but there is parking across the street on Evans so everything in the front of our building and then everything that is on the side of ICCU, there's, I believe, 40 to 50 stalls that are there if you actually taped them out and put parking there. Now, there has been some talk that maybe the city council would want to get rid of that and remove that. I would strongly discourage that. City of Pocatello right now is going to spend $250,000 to do a study to move their city hall into downtown Pocatello, and they're already looking at parking and how they would do that. So I would not eliminate those stalls. So honestly, I think that's why we weren't able to secure the one tenant. It didn't matter what I did. They just weren't convinced that we could get them enough parking. And I said, well, what if we did an underground parking garage? And so we have numbers on that. They range anywhere from $35,000 a stall to $55,000 a stall. I was told that you could only use somebody out of Utah or the Boise area. That is not true. That is not accurate. Dykeman Construction and both Morco Construction, both local contractors here from East Idaho, have the licensing and the ability to do those. And I've spoken with both of them in depth. And a hotel would have the ability to somewhat manage that. And so if we end up putting an underground parking structure underneath the hotel, it would be open to the public. That would be one of the conditions, is that you would have no paid parking or no reservations on that, so that then again, the whole entire community could benefit from that additional parking.
So you think somebody's going to come in and privately build an underground parking and not charge for it?
The hotel is your only option of doing that. Plus, we will probably come back to you and ask you to at least allow us to keep the difference in the TIF that we're creating between the current value of the property and what we will create to help offset that cost, which I do think falls within the scope of the TIF district.
And underground parking, how many stalls can you get under one building?
So for the location that would have been Extreme Rush, it would have been 127 stalls. So then you add that 127 stalls to the parking along the street on Linden, and we do want to change the name, but that'll be a side street. But Chinese Peak, that would easily give you over 250 to 270 stalls within that area.
'Cause I see that as one of the biggest hurdles you have to overcome.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm working on that hurdle.
By my rough math, a parking garage of that size is 4 million plus.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not sure what the underground cost would be, but above ground, it's roughly 30,000 a stall. So
Seems like underground would be more.
I was thinking that, but I don't know.
That's why the number ranged from 35 to 55,000. And without paying somebody to do it, it didn't make sense to go in because we didn't have the actual structure of what we did. So we got a ballpark, and those two ballpark numbers came from companies out of Utah and one out of Boise. And since that time, I've spoken with some local contractors that will be able to do that work, and we'll just have to see where pricing is at that point. So it is a concern, but whether it's with me or the next individual, you will have those same restraints or those same speed bumps that could arise. And we feel that we are adequately trying to address those. On our 3 5-story buildings that we would build, we have underground, or not underground parking, but we have ground level parking that's covered for those individuals that would live in the building, so that then they would not be out on Linden or Evans or Chinese Peak. But based off of what we need to build for the density, we're probably going to have to look at something.
Yeah.
And we've talked with 2 different owners about acquiring more ground. So when you see our proposal come, don't be surprised if you see another piece of ground attached with it, because that's what it will take to either get to parking or do the different things that are necessary to make it a viable project.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Let's see, action item. This is to, I guess, move forward with the addendum as drafted, or how do we want to deal with that?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
First, I don't want my comments to be interpreted as any type of criticism of the work that Josh and Chubbuck Village developers have done. They should be commended for doing what we hope would happen in terms of redeveloping this and bringing in a facility that will bring people downtown. And there's no critique from me. And also the effort that they've put into identifying alternatives when the market may not have supported the original plan. I think that all should be commended. And in terms of just the way development works, I agree with everything that Josh says, is that sometimes the market changes and you have to respond to it and things take longer. I agree with all that. That what's challenging for the CDA is our hands are tied to some extent. The CDA does not have discretion to approve one project and then dramatically change the scope or timing of the project for 2 reasons. One, because of the competitive bidding process. And the proposal was stacked up against another proposal when it was selected. And once you select it, if you allow a dramatic change, then who's to say that that the other proposal was being treated fairly during that process. The other is that when the property's sold, we sell that for fair market value and we get a special appraisal that takes into account all of the development restrictions in the DDA. And those restrictions result in a reduction in the purchase price for the property. And if we start, if we take those conditions and we reduce the purchase price and we convey the property for a reduced price, and then we lift those conditions or make them significantly lighter, that fundamentally affects what the value of the property would have been. So what's challenging here is I would love to see Josh continue to work at it and chip away at it until he finds the development that works and that sticks. And this property is redeveloped the way, we all hope it will be. And there's a reasonable chance that that would be successful. But if we make significant changes to the scope or timing of the project, the CDA is at risk of a legal challenge from other potential developers who say that what we proposed is now compared to something that's substantially different, or what we sold the property for was not fair market value because those conditions are, significantly different. So I'm just being honest that, the attorneys, we see shadows and we worry about worst case scenarios. And so those are the types of things that give me concern. On the other hand, I would like to see Josh build on the success that he's got and continue developing it. So it is the board's decision. If I was advising the board, I would say that first I would say that the extension of phase one is obvious, that's on the cusp of completion. There's no reason we shouldn't extend phase one. On the future extensions, if we want to be comfortable that we're operating within the statutory framework that governs us, we need a definite project. We have one currently, and the market may not bear that. And if an alternative definite project is proposed, I think that could be considered, but kind of open-ended, let's see what we can get and then go with it. I'm not comfortable that stays within the statutory framework that governs us. We also need what you consider a reasonable time frame for completion of the phases and the milestones. And that's your decision to decide if you think the extensions are reasonable under the circumstances. My primary concern is defining the project, having firm milestones for completion, and that just, we have to accept at some point that the market may not bear what was initially contemplated, not because of any fault or anything like that, just because of market factors. And the code is set up to acknowledge that. And if that happens, it's okay. We can start over and Josh could come back under a new RFP with a new proposal that's much broader and different, and maybe others provide competing bids, maybe not. But I am concerned that what's proposed today is for phases 2 through 5 is too broad.
I agree with you. That's one of my biggest concerns, is basically taking this time frame and more than doubling it. That just doesn't sit well, and I don't think that will sit well with our community. I think we need to obviously do something with phase one, and the other phases down here. We can kind of give them basically the same time frame, or an 18-month time frame on there to reconsider or come back with another plan. I mean, here again, we can look at extending these things at another time. But at this time, to kick this down the road, 8 years, that is hard for me to swallow.
I completely agree with that. I'm just thinking, can we split this up, TJ, and approve like the extension of phase one? Because again, Josh has done a fantastic job of getting to where we're at, getting close to that. And then to a certain extent, kick the rest of that down the road just a little bit to give him time to come up with maybe a more complete definition. Because I agree with Dan, having a blank slate at this point in time violates a lot of the stuff from the original RFP. I pulled up some of the records from that original one and the discussion we had, and I feel like we're within our original discussion and intent with the direction we're traveling, but I think we need to have some sideboards again, as Dan identified, with not just a blank chalkboard going forward. So can we split it up that way and approve the extension for phase one to get that done and give Josh a little bit more time to solidify the rest of the project?
And possibly go another 18 months from now or from when that opens up. I don't know. Is that something that can work?
Certainly approving phase one, and we're a little, I mean, we're frankly outside the terms on the extension of the other phases, but we have been for some time, and that's,
Right.
I'm okay with that. What I think might be more fair to Josh, and you got to understand that he came up with a third addendum that he thinks works best for that project, which I totally get. And the concerns that I've raised today are new. You know, he's only had one day, you know, or half a day to think about, how do I respond to this? It might make sense to extend phase one and to invite him to come back to the next CDA meeting and give him some time to think about what might work, having heard the concerns that were raised today for those future phases. And I'm happy to, you know, help with that process to come back with something that I feel like we could defend legally. And so if you want to do the 18-month extension, that's fine too, or we could just put a pin in it till the next meeting.
I struggle with the 18-month extension, to be honest.
I do too. I mean, it's just something to give him time to come up and solidify something down the road.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Rick Keller, Commissioner, I don't know if your microphone was on. I had a hard time hearing you. I don't know if it was on.
It is. I just didn't speak.
But I feel comfortable on phase one, but I'm not ready to make any decisions on phase 2 through 5. I'd prefer to see some more options that are available that we can consider at this time. So, but I am comfortable to make an extension on phase one. So I don't know about how to go about that, legal counsel. So
A motion could be made to amend the DDA to extend the phase one deadline to November 30th. And then I can prepare the addendum to reflect that. So that's easy if the CDA wants to do that at this time.
Okay. What kind of problems do we occur if we're out of sync with all the other phases, but we don't address them anyway?
Well, they'll need to be addressed at a future meeting, but it may take a little more wrestling with it to figure out the best path forward.
Okay. That was just my concern, I guess.
So, Mr. Chair, I would move to decline the third addendum as presented, but instruct council to prepare a revised one that extends phase one to November 30th.
Or 31st.
Or 31st, yeah.
Okay.
TJ, does that work?
Only 30 days in November, but yeah, that works.
Oh, there's 30? Oh, okay. It says 31 on here.
Okay, no, November 30th, sorry.
That's why I said that.
Not friendly.
That's right. I'm just looking at what's written down here. Okay. So there's a motion on the floor to extend phase one to November 30th and readdress the others in a future meeting.
When is the date of?
Mr. Chairman, this is,
Go ahead.
Yes, please, Amanda.
go ahead. Go ahead, Commissioner.
I was just gonna ask, what's the date of our next meeting?
September 15th, I think.
September 5th. Yeah, it is. We have a meeting next month.
Josh, would that give you enough time to come up with a revised plan, or do you need to go like to the October meeting?
I would probably prefer the October meeting.
Okay.
Part of the
Actually, would be November because we do them every other
Yeah.
month. And this is a special meeting because we have to approve budget. That has to be done.
TJ, does that cause any problems if we wait for November for a plan?
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay.
Let's keep it right now for November and then we
Yeah.
can call a special one if we need to.
So let me amend my motion then that everything stays except we require a plan from the developer by the November meeting.
Okay. Amanda, what did you need? What comments do you have?
No, I was just gonna provide a second, but I do like the updated motion. I can second
Okay.
that.
All right. Okay, we have a motion and a second.
I second.
Oh, she already did.
Oh, she did. Sorry, I can't hear anything on that. So.
Keller,
Yes.
Huff,
Yes.
Heiner,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
DeFosse.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. We will see you later.
Thank you.
Get the original, can I receive get the original, like whatever we agreed upon?
Yes.
Just so.
Alexis, at some point in time, either you or Joey, would you get the original DDA for Brandon? He's never seen it.
I just don't know. I mean, I don't
See
even know
what
what we're
the
talking
original
about.
document
So.
Yeah, I can have Joey email it to
That'd
you
be
tomorrow
great.
if that
Thank you.
works.
In fact, Tiz, why don't you email it to all of us?
Yes,
Okay, all of
please.
them. Okay, perfect.
All right, thank you. Okay, see, discussion, action item, potential action item for 260 East Linden Road. And is that this property right here to the west of us? Yeah. Okay. And we had some talk about that and TJ, you and I and Ashley started in that meeting. However, I had to bail out after 5 minutes. I had an emergency that I had to take care of. So I was even, didn't even hear anything about that. If you're okay, do you want to bring us up to speed on that discussion?
Yes, let me look and see if I've got notes on that. I don't think I kept notes from that meeting. We did have a discussion with, so Dan and Ashley and I and Mayor Birch about that property. The property's a little bit in a challenging position. We've done a couple RFPs to try to sell that property to somebody who will redevelop it. Initially, we had a proposal from Sika and their plans fell through, so they weren't able to redevelop it. We've done another RFP with no redevelopment, and so we still own it, trying to figure out what to do with it. One idea is we could give it to the city either for public use or for redevelopment. The city, you know, their initial desire is not to turn it into a park or something for public use. Their desire is to have that developed in some way. And Mayor Birch wants to explore ways to redevelop that using funds from the Yellowstone Corridor project. So, did we get further than that, Dan? I don't know that we did.
I don't know that we did either. It
The
was just,
mayor kind of has some ideas and he said he's been speaking with some potential occupants who might want to utilize that property and he's going to come back to us, you know, if he feels like there's something that might stick there, but we're still just sitting on that property, which we may do for a while, trying to figure out how to make it productive and useful.
yeah, and, you know, I had a discussion with the mayor and he mentioned that he had this group that works with public finance and potentially a way to hopefully come up with some money up front based on the Yellowstone urban renewal area. And potentially there is a way to do that if this is something we wanted to do. And, you know, instead of waiting for something to happen over the next several, 10, however long it takes to get some funds accrued through that urban renewal area to leverage that up front and try and get something in here now to help get some tax revenue coming in and get some use of that property that will help the overall downtown plan. That's kind of where we're at and what we're talking about, some way to move forward with that sooner rather than later, and something that will fit. But it works better for the CDA to own, build, manage that, sell it off, whatever, than it does for the city to do it, because the city's hands are tied. They can't really do anything with it
Yeah.
and sell it off. And so it really makes sense that if we can find some way to make this thing work, get some, what, a revenue bond or whatever, that was kind of the discussion to go to that direction, to try and move forward with that. So that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, let me add to that, Dan.
It is kind of an albatross on our neck because of what it is, where it sits and the size and, just all the surrounding, what's surrounding that, where we are.
Yeah, Dan, I'm glad you brought up the revenue bond concept. I failed to mention that. So there's kind of two different ways of using Yellowstone corridor funds to redevelop that. One would be just wait until the funds accumulate, and eventually we'll have money in the bank, so to speak, and then we could either build something or, partner with somebody or do something like that to redevelopment with money we have in hand. The mayor brought up an alternative, the revenue bond proposal, which is basically that you would sell revenue bonds, generate a bunch of money up front to redevelop it, and then use tax increment financing to pay back the bonds. The concern with that approach is we're kind of putting our eggs in that basket. So once you do that, you limit your ability to fund other projects that may come along down the road. And those are kind of just business decisions that the CDA may have to make. But those types of ideas are being floated around as ways to potentially get that property developed in some form. There's nothing to be proposed to the CDA at this point, but those efforts are just being discussed and explored, and we'll see where they lead.
Yeah. So that's what we're doing, just trying to look for alternatives and ideas to move things forward. Okay. Item number 6 is the budget, and technically we need to open this up to a public hearing. Consider the approval of the proposed fiscal year 2027 budget.
Mr. Chair, I would move to open the public hearing for FY '27 budget.
Okay, there's a motion to open a public hearing. Is there a second?
I second.
And a second by DeFossis. Please call roll.
Keller,
Yes.
Huff,
Yes.
Heiner,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
DeFossis.
Yes.
Okay, you all have a copy of the budget with you, and we actually reviewed this at our last meeting. I don't know, there was a whole lot of comments or questions on this. Nothing has changed since we reviewed that. And there is nobody here that I see or online other than our board members for public comment. So I guess if there are no public comment, I would close the public hearing. And then we can have an open discussion about the budget. Do you have any questions, concerns, or what would you like to know? Ashley was going to present this, but she's not here, and so I'm just kind of shooting from the hip. Basically, what we have, if you look at this 2 sheets here with the budget on here that have the blue at the top of this, total revenues and cash available is, I'll just go through those. 300,000 is what's proposed from the Pine Ridge Mall District. All those funds go back to basically pay the interest on that and to pay the payback Zions because those monies were drawn out. Northside District, there's 250,000 budgeted to come in on that. Harvest Springs, 75,000. That's just kind of getting started, not a whole lot generated yet. Yellowstone Corridor District, anticipating $200,000 coming in on that. Interest on all the accounts except for the Pine Ridge Fund, because those are just basically handle everything that goes through that Pine Ridge deal. 17,000, and the general fund balance carryover from our fiscal year 2026 budget of 64,181. So total revenues are 928,171. Then the professional services, what we have on there is the executive director, legal service, audit services, accounting services totaling $90,000. Operational expenses, ICRIMP, which is our insurance, legal publications, and general, comes from the general funds, and dues and subscriptions, $2,100, total of $9,000 on that. So $99,000 total operational expenses, and less contractual obligations we have in there is $829,171. So our total projected expenditures on there would total to $829,171, which would balance our budget. Any questions or comments on that?
No, I would just like to commend Ashley for putting together this budget. I know she had some issues getting some information out of the county, and so I'm glad that she was able to get that. So I just want to commend her on the record for a job well done.
Yes, thank you. Okay. There's nothing else. I would entertain a motion to approve our fiscal year 2027 budget as presented.
Mr. Chair, I'd make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the budget. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Rick Keller, second.
We'll take Keller.
I'm in second.
Yeah.
You gotta be
You're the
faster. You gotta
designated.
be faster, Brad.
Pinch hit.
Then we need a couple more council members here.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Keller,
Yes.
Huff,
Yes.
Heiner,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
DeFossis.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, item number 7. And I am not prepared to talk about this. Basically, there's a tentative fiscal year amendment for the 2026 budget. And I don't have that. I just knew that we needed to make some amendments on this, so we will postpone this until our next meeting. Because we need to do an amendment for that. And I'm not sure exactly what goes into that. I don't have that information.
I think we're just opening the budget to accept some additional revenue.
I think so. I'm not sure what it was. I didn't see that in the minutes or in the notes. Anyway, I think we can postpone that till Ashley gets back with us.
Okay.
All right. TJ, do you have any other things you want to talk about?
Nope, we've covered all the legal stuff. Thank you.
Yes, and I appreciate your comments and getting on this ahead of schedule for this meeting. I was very appreciative to see your email.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I did email Mr. Ellis and his attorney earlier today and let them know that I had some concerns with the CDA's legal ability to accept the third addendum as presented. So they weren't totally caught off guard, but they've not had a lot of time to process that.
Okay. I don't have anything, so our next meeting will be next month, September 15th, which is our regularly scheduled meeting. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Aye.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time and comments and all that you do for us, with us.